Welcome everyone to this session on retirement savings by Mr. Debashish Basu, who is also the founder trustee of Moneylife Foundation and the editor and publisher of Moneylife magazine. Mr. Basu is a chartered accountant by qualification with 29 years of experience as a journalist. He has worked with most of India's leading newspapers such as the Times of India, Business World, Financial Express, Business India, Business Today, and has written columns for Business Standard and the Economic Times. Thank you. May I now invite Mr. Basu to begin the session.
Thank you very much for coming here today. Really appreciate your participation. This is the second part of a session, of a two-part session on retirement. The first part was much shorter, and I don't know if any of you were there, but I just pick up the thread from where we left in the first part and take you through a brief description of what we described there. We started with a typical saver, a typical Indian saver, a middle class saver who has responsibilities, has to spend a lot of money investing in a property, which is a reality of Indians today, has a small amount of savings which is growing, preferably in a fixed income product because that is the product of choice, like a bank fixed deposit. A large chunk of his money goes in paying his home loan. So that leaves him with not that much of money in the end. Earns typically a salary of let's say 60,000 rupees a month, and with these kind of expenses and EMI he's able to save about 15,000 rupees a month, right? Now 15,000 a month relative to the income, it's about 25%, and typically 25% should get you a good corpus over a period of time, provided you save in the right product over the long period of time. At that stage of his life, say he's 45, we said, if you ask him about retirement savings and retirement corpus, and if he lives till 85, let's say, which is not uncommon today, that's 40 years from now, he'll have absolutely no idea. That's the story of a lot of people. Now, before I go into any of this further, I'll show you a certain reality. This is a fictional character. This are about 9 charts we have picked up, 9 stories we have picked up of real life stories from a publication which goes and asks people, where are you putting your money? So these are real life stories. Actual person who's living in Jodhpur. Follow through these 9 slides, follow this large big blue part of the pie, and that is nothing other than the household, the money that is going into creating an apartment, an EMI repayment or property. So in this case, typically 79% of his net worth is locked up in one asset class, as they call, something that is not liquid, something he desperately has to have, and in an emergency, it's not an investment product, it's not something that he can liquidate overnight. It's not fixed deposit, it's not mutual fund, it's not corporate deposit, it's not gold. And all of these things are fairly liquid, can be sold. 79% in the first case, 77% in the second case, and so on. Across the country, from Bhopal to Jodhpur to Gujarat to Mumbai to Pune, everywhere, look at the large segment of the household savings that is going into creating an asset. This will have serious repercussions when this person is almost going to retire, because if we go back to our story of this gentleman that we wanted to share with you, that is Mr. Kumar. A lot of his money is going into creating he's exactly in the same position. A lot of his money is going into creating a property for himself. All right. 15 years later, he is retired. At 60, he has saved in a money back plan, which probably an accountant in his office would have sold him. We all buy LIC's money back plans or endowment plans from a friend, from a cousin, and most often than not in any large organization, the accountant. He knows how much money you're supposed to save for tax, so he's right there with a fantastic proposal, money back. Money is going to come back to you, so you very easily fall for it. Nothing wrong with it, except that the returns will be very low. a lot of the money is going into the bank, and all that's very passive because salaries are received in checks, deposited in the bank, and to the extent that you need, you withdraw, rest remains over there. It's not a conscious decision for most of us. It is whatever is there. Large amount of money accumulates this way in your savings account, and then one fine day you wake up and say, why is so much of money lying in savings account? Let me make an FD. So that's the one active step you would have taken in life, which is converting your money which is lying in savings account into FD. He may have luckily ignored the pension ads of insurance companies. If he'd fallen for it, then he'd obviously have that as well. And these are relatively new phenomenon. 15 years ago, there were no ads of pension from insurance companies. But nowadays, HDFC Life to Aviva to all of these, they come up with these kind of ads. But his biggest asset still is the property. If he lives for another 25 years, from 60 to 85, what will his situation be in terms of his income, in terms of his expenditure, and how does he match the two? Remember, a typical salaried professional will not have an income, will not have a regular income. If he's in a profession which he can keep peddling well after his retirement, if he's a doctor, if he's a teacher, he probably will keep earning money. And that story is a completely different story. If you have any earning power after your normal retirement, you are part of maybe 1% of the people, and depending on how big this income level is, this earning is, it's going to completely change your calculation. Having a regular source of new income, which you had earlier, and not having it makes a hell and heaven difference. I have assumed that a normal salaried employee will not have that earning. At 60, he would have saved some money, right? So if you think back to the first slide, he had 20 lakhs when he was 45, okay? Which is shown at the bottom of the thing on the left-hand side. We have also assumed that he saved some 15,000 rupees per month, okay? So his corpus, or his money that he has at 60, is the growth of that 20 lakhs and also the growth of 15,000 rupees per month. Okay? If he has put this kind of investment and his regular savings both put together in any of the products that we have assumed, which is a bank deposit or a money back plan or any of these safe products, he would not earn more than 7% on a post-tax basis. He's in a taxable bracket. He's in a 60,000 rupee taxable bracket. So if that is his earning, 7%, over the next 15 years, that is from 45 to 60 until the time he's retired, that 20 lakhs plus the 15,000 rupees per month invested in a product which gives him 7% post-tax return would be about 1 crore of rupees. At 60, he's got 1 crore. Is that enough? Not if he lives till 85. Let's see how. Turn towards his expenses after 60. He has no income and he has now only expenses. His expenses at 45, we had assumed was 20,000 rupees a month. That was there in the first slide. Inflation is a hard reality for us Indians. There's not so much of inflation in America, which is about 1%, not so much in Japan. But for Indians, especially urban Indians, especially those who are earning 60,000 rupees per month, are suffering not 9% inflation, which I've assumed very generously, are periodically suffering 11%, 12% inflation. So let's assume only 9% inflation. The figure of 20,000 per month cost will now, at age 60, 15 years later, would be about 60,000 rupees per month at 9% inflation. To recap, what was 20,000 when he was 45 is 60,000 when he is 60. But this is not stagnant. This is the time at 60 when that 60,000 will continuously keep going up at the same 9% rate. So 20,000 has become 60,000 15 years later, when he's 60, when he's at 85, at 9%, it's 4,80,000 per month. This is a simplistic calculation, and you can amend it accordingly. Meaning, you can assume, as a lot of mutual funds or insurance companies say, there are tools in their websites. They say you can assume your inflation as if you're an inflation expert. But even assuming that you are, their suggested inflation rate is about 6%. I don't think India has seen 6% inflation except for a very, very brief while sometime in 2001 and 2. And please be careful what you wish for. A 6% inflation in a country like India would mean complete stagnancy of the economy, which means the economy would not grow at all, which is a terrible thing for the rest of the economy. And there are going to be other problems. There could be social problems if the economy does not grow at all and if you have a 6% inflation. We could still have, I'm just digressing a little bit, we could still have, if you're very lucky, a growing economy with a low inflation, but that calls for tremendous amount of leadership overall of economic institutions and political decisions, which we are not likely to see. We have not seen it in the last 60 years. So the reality is that he will enter a period of 25 years when his costs would keep relentlessly rising. There's one adjustment you could make, which is to say that 20,000 per month expenses would be reduced. He'll cut his costs. All right. So yeah, we could cut your costs certainly. If you really see the kind of expenses, the composition of expenses people have when they are 45 or 50. Certain amount of expenses would definitely get reduced when you're at 60 and beyond, but there's certain other kinds of expenses that keep growing, and these are all service related things, and as you age you probably sort of need help, household help, and any of these kind of services for urban people is galloping. Today it is very hard to find good quality people whom you can rely on to do some of these things, and if you find them, they are so priceless that you're willing to pay just about any amount of money for peace of mind. So pluses and minuses put together, this is likely to be the picture. We've looked at his growth of his corpus and his growth of his expenses. How do they square with each other? At 1 crore corpus at 60 and 60,000 rupees expenses, which is going to grow, he's got a tough choice. At 60, he doesn't want to take a chance. All his life, he has invested in bank FD and money back and so on and so forth. There's certainly no chance in hell that he's going to put his money into an equity mutual fund or a stock at this stage, which anyway has not given any returns, as he reads everywhere, right? So that 1 crore corpus is in the bank. It's very safe. It earns him 9%. I've just assumed a little generously that at this stage he has no income, so he'll probably be outside the tax bracket, but he may still have an income. But just let's assume that he makes 77,000 rupees per month out of interest income alone. So in the first month, he's got 77,000 rupees income out of that 1 crore corpus at 9% per annum. He's got a 60,000 rupees expense. This 1 crore is not growing, and that 77,000 is not growing. That is fixed. What is growing is that 60,000 cost. So 60 becomes 61, 65, 67. There will be a time pretty soon. Follow the blue line. The blue line grows a little bit. Why does it go up a little bit? Because every month he's got 17,000 extra. He's got 60,000 cost and 77,000 interest income. So for a while, until that 60 catches up with 77, he's got surplus, extra interest over his monthly costs. But very soon, this rise of 60 will reach 77. And then he will have to withdraw. Suppose it is 80,000 in a particular month, a couple of years later. If it's 80,000, he needs 3,000 additional. So he has to break his 1 crore. So that's why the blue line starts going down. Now he is withdrawing from his corpus. right? Not immediately, maybe if you really look at that thing, sometime around the 5th year, 4th year. Now he's withdrawing from his corpus, and the interest is also going down. His corpus is also going down while the costs are rising. So around the end of 17th year or so, he has no money left at this kind of rate, unless he does one of the two things, unless he finds a way to reduce his cost or finds a way to supplement it with some sort of an income. In a situation like this is a very stark and a bleak situation. It only assumes the worst, all right? It doesn't assume that he's got a son who takes care of him, for instance. I'll come to all of these other things later. It's just pure arithmetic of how we save and how we invest and where we are likely to be. What went wrong in a situation like this? None of these calculations were done. For instance, how much is enough? How much is enough is a calculation that once you look at that picture, then you have to ask yourself, okay, if this is what my situation is going to be, let me calculate how much is enough. How much should I retire with at 60 so that with this expense it lasts till 85, let's say, right? And at what lifestyle? Should my costs be 60,000 or should my cost be 50,000? That's all going to influence your need or the money that you need tremendously. What is going to be my expenses at the time of retirement? How much would the expenses rise? Right? That inflation calculation I've done is my rule of thumb, which is 9%. It can be higher, actually. How much to save? So that you reach that number, which is going to be enough. Okay, so in our case it was 15,000 rupees per month. If he'd done all of these calculations, he'd work back and say, maybe I should save 3,000 rupees more. Okay, and 3,000 rupees more in what product? Not the money back that my accountant sold me, maybe in something else, which will give me higher return, higher corpus. And of course, at 60, when I have 1 crore of rupees, where should I invest that for the expected return of the portfolio? These are before retirement calculations, which we normally don't do. After retirement, and I'm afraid to say that the people who are now 35, 37, 40 have to do these calculations quite urgently, because a lot of their money is in the property, right? And relative to that, they don't have that much of liquid cash, especially people who are working. Post-retirement, where to put the money? And what is the expected return from that investment? I have assumed very simplistically, his 20 lakh and 15,000 savings has led to 1 crore and he's put it in the bank and he's earning 77,000 rupees. Is there a better option? Is there something more we can do? Assuming that we'll live till 85. And there are other assumptions as well. How long will it last at a new kind of portfolio that I'm going to create for myself? How much to withdraw from principal and at what stage? If at 60 he's in very good health and he says, I want to put 25 lakhs, I made a mistake. When I look at the Sensex, I see it's gone up 12% compounded, at least in the worst case scenario, and it's all tax free. I made a mistake. I made a mistake in the last 25 years. I'm not going to make a mistake in the next 15. So let me put some money in equity mutual funds. Let's say he may think like that. It's most unlikely, but if he does, even if he does, then he still needs to calculate at what stage is he going to, how does the money grow, and at what stage he needs to encash it. Because the money growing is one thing, but when the money grows with a little bit of investment, the movement in the market does not affect us. But when we have already built a corpus, the same movement in the market, we may lose our sleep. If you're investing 15,000 rupees a month and the Sensex falls 10%, it doesn't matter. But if this 15,000 has grown to be 2 crore and the Sensex falls 10%, we quickly calculate, hey, I've lost 20 lakhs. So that you have to sort of mentally adjust to. Most importantly, all these are financial numbers. Most of us would have non-financial support typically, most of us have kids or have that kind of a support. If you don't have, then of course this doesn't apply to you. Is there any post-retirement income or support that we can do? In all of these questions, some things you can control, some things you can't control. So leave aside some stuff that you can't control. For instance, how long will you live? All my calculation is about 85. If this man dies at 70, then all these calculations are all useless because his wife gets that 1 crore and probably she's better off. Irregular health expenses. That smooth curve that I showed you where 60,000 becomes 4 lakh 80 is not going to be smooth. It's all oversimplified to illustrate a point. It's going to be up and down like this. It'll be up, most certainly. It can be higher than 4 lakh 80. But somewhere down up there, it just might shoot up because you have an expense, you have a health situation, and you need to spend that money, which is not taken into account your regular household expense estimates. Other financial and non-financial support, we don't know. What you can control though is how much you can save and invest. Post-retirement income out of that corpus, it's entirely in your hands where you put it. Regular post-retirement spending, that is entirely you can, as I said, this gentleman can cut costs and make his money last longer, and certainly certain amount of tax impact. To go back to the pre-retirement situation and look at the things that you can control and see what could have been done better, the least you should do is avoid the wrong products. Products that will not make your 20 lakhs grow to 2 crore. Products that will make your 20 lakh get stuck at 1 crore at some stage. Save as much as possible, as early as possible. How much difference the time makes is not something that we are able to calculate very easily, because we tend to think that if we save for 20 years and then somebody is saving for let's say 5 years, one guy would be 1/4 of the other. It's not so. The guy who's saved for 20 years would be not 4 times but maybe 15 times the guy who has been saving for 5 years, because bulk of the money starts growing very, very sharply, significantly after it's reached a certain level. And that is irrespective of the return. Even if you were to save in a bank FD, if you save for 5 years, it will grow at a certain rate. If you save for 15 years, it will grow vertically, because then you are earning income on your corpus. I'll show you with a couple of charts. Invest in products that create wealth. These are the 3 things that we avoid, what to choose as much as possible. Fairly simple things to do. The point I was making, the difference between starting early. If somebody starts saving at 27, simple 1 lakh per annum. Okay, he earns 5 lakhs and he saves 1 lakh per annum. But he's a diligent saver. Every month he's saving. He's saving in a product which does not give. Let's assume this is bank FD. So he gets the money, puts it in a bank FD. Again he gets, and again he's doing it. Maybe a recurring deposit scheme. If the other person starts just 10 years later, it'd be somewhere just half. All right, even though both of them have saved for another 20 years each. So if I've taken from 27 to 57, another is 37 to 57. If you're late by 10 years, you get half the money. To be able to catch up with the first guy, to take the same example, look at it in a slightly different way. If the first person is saving 1 lakh per month, for this guy who started 10 years later, he'll have to more than double his savings, even though he's still saving for another 20 years, to be able to catch up with the first guy. Right? Second point I made is, don't invest in harmful products and invest in products that create wealth. Now, these are the broad contours of the returns that you're likely to get from different products. There could be a little bit of changes here and there. And you of course need to completely ignore the first and the second as far as the smoothness and one uniform number is concerned. Let me spend a little bit of time on this. When we say a rate of return, we are talking about a rate of return over a period of time. Within that, if you are investing in a fixed income product, it doesn't matter whether you're investing for 20 years or you're investing for 1 year. Minimum, let's say 1 year. you are going to get the same rate of return, which means a bank FD, 1 year bank FD could be 8.75%. A 3 year bank FD could be 9.25%. That's about the differences. 1 year investment in an equity mutual fund could be minus 20%, could be plus 20%, could be 0%, could be 3%. All right. Anything that is traded, that is market linked, where the value goes up and down on a daily basis, on a minute to minute basis, return calculations necessarily have to be over a very long period of time, so that these up down movements are cancelled out in favor of a strategy, in favor of a formula that is well thought out. So when I say gold rate of return that you're likely to get is 6 to 9%, I feel that this return is going to come primarily from the fact that gold is imported in this country, and India is going to suffer a 5% to 7% devaluation every year. So even if the international gold prices were to remain stagnant, you would still get an advantage of a 5% increase in price of gold. As you just saw, gold prices have crashed internationally. In India, they've just gone down by about 10-12%. Right? In US, they've fallen by about some 30% or so. We don't suffer it because we import. The value of rupee is going down and it's being multiplied by a higher number. So therefore, when I say equity fund 12%, I necessarily mean a return which is procured over at least 10 years. In any case, we are in a session which is talking about retirement savings. It's not talking about day trading, for instance. So any savings, any retirement savings is necessarily for a very, very long period of time. Most of the others, bank FD, corporate deposits, traditional insurance and PPF, including NPS to some extent, they are all products which are not going to fluctuate that much. They are substantially invested in fixed income, where the returns are more or less fixed. So when you look at a return like this, there is a qualitative difference between that 12% and the gold of 6 to 9% from the rest of them. The others will not fluctuate. The returns will be fixed, and these two are certainly going to fluctuate because they are traded in the market. They go up and down. But over a long period of time, this is your rough horizon. Now, very clearly, equity mutual fund scores head and shoulders above anything else, because if nothing else, this is post-tax. 12% or 11% post-tax is equivalent to almost 15% or 16% pre-tax. So when a bank pays you 8%, 8.75%, mutual fund is likely to give you 15% on a pre-tax basis. And that's a significant differential. Third point I made is avoid the wrong products. Market is full of advertisements of various kinds of retirement products. All right. Now, if you look at this HDFC Life's advertisement, well, your 63rd birthday will be as grand as the 36th. The product is supposed to be HDFC Life retirement plan. This is no different in character and nature from your bank FD, minus the cost. Why is it no different? Because a life insurance company, to be able to guarantee you a certain corpus at the end of from 36 to 63, okay, over 27 years, if the life insurance industry doesn't have to has to avoid fooling around with your money for 27 years, it will take your money and put it in fixed income products. It will buy a government bond, which is today yielding 7.5%. All right, and then out of that, it will take out costs. What costs? Advertisements like these, which you pay for. They don't pay from your pocket. It's all going to come out of your pocket. So all of the costs, the salaries, the commissions, everything, overhead expenses, everything is going to come out of that product itself. And that product does not earn more than 7.5 to 8%, because that is what a safe fixed income product is able to get you or get HDFC Life. In both these two cases, whether you invest on your own in a bank or buy a government bond, or HDFC goes and invests in some fixed income product like a government bond, both of you are exactly in the same situation. Both of you will earn the same money, same income. So the income is fixed. In your case, there is no cost. You buy the bond, you get the interest. You put the money in bank FD, you get interest. HDFC Life has a whole lot of costs. So your return is likely to be even lower than what you would get by investing in bank FD. So this is what I mean by completely wrong products. And the same with IDBI Life or any of the other products. So 3 things to recap. This is really the core of it and one of the most important things, which is invest in the right products, in a mix of right products, which gives you a little higher than that 9% which that poor fellow got over 20-15 years. Don't buy the wrong ones, which will lead to lower returns, which is not your objective. And save and invest early and save enough as much as you can. All right. This is a simple categorization just to make you aware that costs can differ, and we have oversimplified, as I said, taken 20,000, made 9%, made 60,000. Every single individual situation is going to be different and the requirements are different, but I leave you with one simple, very interesting study done by Professor Dan Ariely. There is a rule of thumb among financial planners which says that what your costs are at the date of your retirement, you would need about 80% of that in your post-retirement period, which means that if 60,000 is your per month expense on the date that you retire, post-retirement you're going to need about 48,000, which is 80% of that, which is, and a lot of things in financial literacy, financial products, distribution, the entire business is overly simplified because there is only limited time and interest we have in understanding these things. We try to make it complex, nobody will be able to absorb or spend or have the interest kept up. So therefore this 80% rule of thumb has come about. Dan Ariely wanted to find out whether it's correct or not, because among the many things people just mindlessly apply this 80% rule as well. So he went about asking retirees a completely different kind of question. He did a survey. He asked them not how much you would need. He asked them, please tell me what all you want to do in a post-retirement period. How do you want to spend the day? What are the various hobbies that you would like to have, which means a desire, not a question of what they have and living within that. And this is when they have enough of time. Most of these people were around 40s, let's say. So they had enough of time to do a course correction if they wanted to. And guess what? The number that he got was not 80%, but was 135%, which means post-retirement people had a higher requirement of money given what they wanted to do, right? So I've just listed down the various things that we all say we'd like to do. Some hobbies are expensive. For instance, somebody wants to do photography. It's not cheap. You can do photography by clicking pictures here and there in the city, but eventually people wanted to go out and travel, and all of that costs much more than the basic cost of the camera itself. To get there, with the right products, avoiding the wrong ones, saving enough, you need to still create a mix of products. How much, for instance? And the whole concept is very simple. You need to put a little bit of money in higher risk products, things that go up and down and make you lose your sleep. Some products which are a little safer, and most of us anyway in Indians are all investing in safer products, unless of course we go and invest in Speak Asia out of greed, but that's a different story. We need to mix safety and returns, and that entirely depends on your age and on your dependents. On the age business, I have a slightly a different view. All of us start with the assumption, we don't start with the assumption that we are going to have a heart attack and 65 and die, right? We all have an assumption that we'll take care of ourselves and we're going to live long enough. Today, medical science and health facilities have improved so much that it's very, very normal for people. My mom had had health problems throughout her life. She's 83 and still alive, right? So I've seen it. I mean, she had all kinds of ulcers and this and that, but the food and medicines and everything has ensured that she is 83 today. So your age, I just assume that we will live long enough if we don't really destroy our health in some way or the other. Dependence is a much more serious thing. If you have dependence, you necessarily have to take much lower risk. There's no question about that, because you cannot, it's a simple situation. You cannot put your wealth at all in any kind of peril if you actually have dependence. Within these two constraints, and there's no other major issue to consider in deciding how much to put money where. Anything more than this, you are necessarily increasing complexity, and you're not likely to gain anything much out of increasing that complexity. I'll quickly run through this because I guess not too many people in this room are 25 to 35. So this is a great time. You have a lot of time on your hands. Invest in the right combination of products. If unmarried and no dependents, you can save much more. Use the power of compounding. This is what experts use a big word, asset allocation, which is all bullshit, essentially in where to invest as a matter of mix. So fixed income should take up 15 to 30% of your income. Please ensure you save definitely more than 25% of your total income. 30-35% would be good. And the bulk of your money has to go into equity mutual funds. You have a long time ahead, and there is no question that this is really the best, the finest way to save much more money that you could ever imagine by putting in an FD. And the longer the period, the bigger and bigger and bigger the difference. Just to give you a rule of thumb, if you put that money 85 to 70%, if you had money going into bank FD, you may have 1 crore. If you put it in mutual fund, you're likely to have 5 crores. Is that magnitude, that level of difference, that order of difference. All right. To give you an example, with this kind of asset allocation, from 25 to 60, somebody saving just 10,000 per month, which is growing at 10%. 10% is a mix. It's the mix that I get by putting 85%, let's say, in a mutual fund, and then not 70% in mutual fund, and another 30% in bank every. Suppose I get 10%. That is going to be 14 crore, right? It's far more than Mr. Kumar had 1 crore. And this is 14 crores. With this kind of money, you're never going to run out of money ever in life, and you're going to do all that 135% expenses that Dan Ariely talks about. 36 to 45, you're in a situation of rising household expenses. You have to plan for your children's education. One of the biggest worries, as our recent survey and the cover story on parenting points out. Pay down your loans as much as possible. Plan for your retirement. This is usually, unfortunately, very low priority. Retirement is far off. I am only 40 at this stage. At this stage of your life, this could be your asset allocation. Fixed income. I've just mentioned fixed income. I'm not necessarily saying bank FD or corporate fixed deposits or whatever. I'll come to that a little later. I want to spend a little extra time on fixed income because that does consume a lot of our money, and post-retirement also. That is a significant part of where you should put your money. If you do this, from 40 onwards to 60, you still have 4.5 crores. Mr. Kumar had 1 crore at 15,000 per month. 25,000 per month growing at 10%, you'll still have 4.5 crores. You're never going to run out of money over the next 25 years. 46 to 60, much lower household expenses. Kids have gone off to school, have gone off to college, and are in working. Expenses of dependence, if any, is a worry. So that needs to be taken into account for any specific situation. Loans ought to be mostly repaid by then. You must keep investing for retirement. Near 60, systematic withdrawal if wealth is, that's a spelling mistake, is invested in equity mutual funds. During this period, your asset allocation should be 30 to 40% in fixed income, equity mutual funds 70 to 60%. Let's say 60-40, all right? Fairly simple to follow. If you do this, even at 50, if you start investing 40,000 per month, I'm just assuming because your income would have grown, what was 25 would be much more when you are at 50. You could save much more. Your income has grown. Even then, it's 1.36 crores starting at 50. to 60s in just about 10 years with this kind of asset allocation. You're in a much better position than Mr. Kumar was. To use this examples, what he could have done, he could have done 80% in equity at 12%, 20% in debt at 7%, and therefore even at a certain stage of his life for the next 15 years, he could still bridge the gap a little bit. Post-retirement, one big question, as opposed to all of these issues before. The idea is, at the time of accumulation, when you're investing, it's much simpler because, to repeat, you're putting smaller amounts of money, but now you already have a corpus and you need to be really careful because you're dealing with a much larger sum of money. All of these questions are relevant. Where to put so that an expected return is good enough? How long will the savings last? How much and when to withdraw from principal? When to withdraw from equity funds if in case you have it? What is your post-retirement income and support? At that stage, there are many options. Okay, there are annuities, for instance, which are offered by life insurance companies. It works like this: you got 1 crore, you give the 1 crore to an insurance company, and they pay you a monthly check. There's nothing more satisfying. There's nothing more calming of the mind than getting a regular payment from somebody reliable. Unfortunately, there are two problems with this. One is that same story as the retirement option I talked about, HDFC Life. If LIC takes 1 crore of your money, LIC has to be very, very, very careful with it. It's a retiree's money. It's an annuity. They have to pay you. So they will first ensure that nothing happens to this 1 crore. They're not going to take that 1 crore and buy 50 lakh worth of stocks. They will not do that. They will take that money and make it safe. The only place you can make that money safe is buying bonds. All right? Same story, they'll buy government bonds, and they'll buy, they may not even buy corporate bonds, they may buy PSU bonds and so on. So essentially, they would do exactly what you could have also done, which is put your money in bank FD and bought bonds. Then there are costs. Since they're giving this to you on a regular basis, they have people to account for it, they have, overheads, the air conditioning, the ads, all of that they're going to take away from you. So essentially, annuity rate is very, very low. Very surprisingly, the government, the regulator wants these insurance companies to give a guaranteed annuity. So you have to guarantee a figure, all right? But the most insurance companies are extremely reluctant to guarantee anything, especially the foreign insurance companies, because they have seen that their assessment of how long you live, if that goes wrong, they're going to sort of keep paying you a lot more money. But it's something that I've not understood, but this is what they tell us, that we cannot take your longevity risk. We don't know how long you're going to live, so we have to keep paying. Our calculations go haywire. So non-guaranteed, if it is likely to be around 3 to 7%, depending on where you bought it from and what they've done with the money. Unfortunately, this is one of the incomes that is taxed. So not only you get a low return, but you get after post-tax also, it's not going to be significant. By the way, the slabs that exempt people from taxation is not connected to inflation. So while more and more people are getting into tax-paying bracket, only once a while, maybe in 5 years, 7 years, some finance minister very generously says that, okay, now the slab is a little higher. By that time, a lot more money, thanks to inflation, have come into the tax bracket. So you don't know when that slab is going to be changed, but a lot of people who are retiring with 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, the numbers that we're talking about would be in the taxable bracket from day one post-retirement, even if they have no income, because the income they're making out of the interest is fully taxable. So this is significant. It's not that I don't have any income, I'm retired, so I don't pay tax. It's not that. You have to pay tax on that. Then there's something called Senior Citizen Savings Scheme. You can invest up to 15 lakhs, pays about 9% per annum quarterly, maturity period of 5 years, can be extended to 3 years. 8.7 to 9, 9 to 9.5, it's not going to make a big difference to the story maybe simplified, but the story that we looked at, which is in 17 years, Mr. Kumar's money is no longer there. There is something called monthly income plan. These are launched by mutual funds. It's a misnomer because you don't get a monthly income. For some strange reason, it's called monthly income, and SEBI has allowed it. Essentially, they do what I am suggesting you do, which is put some amount of money in fixed income and some amount of money in equities. Exactly what I am suggesting. Their thing is about 85% in fixed income and 15% in equities. I disagree with this mix for the simple reason that 15% in equities is neither here nor there. Take an example. I am assuming that your mutual fund over a long period of time is likely to give you, let's say, 12%. So 15% of 12% is what you're going to get of this part, which is 1.8%. And 85% is the rest, which is put into fixed income products. So 1.8% comes out of the mutual fund part, and 85%, which is invested in, let's say, in a 9% or an 8.5% security product, which is about 6-7%. So 6-7% from there and 1.8% from here. So essentially, it's still take 7 plus 1, 8.8 or 9%, which is certainly not more than what a 3-year bank deposit is going to pay you. Some of these capital protected funds or whatever, they have locked in also for 3 years. So within this, the problem is that I'm assuming that you're going to get 12%. For 3 years, if the market is down 15%, this 15% part is going to inflict a loss. Or if the market is 0, then you're going to get 0 out of this, which means you're going to get only out of that 85% wherever it has been invested. If it's invested in a 9% instrument, you're going to get only about 7%. So you are taking an exposure through this in the market, and you're not taking enough of an exposure or enough of a time to really take advantage of what the equity market does over a long period of time. So it's neither here nor there. It's not going to gain anything for you. Meanwhile, you have to pay them. To all of this, you can do it yourself. You can put 15% in an equity mutual fund for 10 years, which is no big deal. But to do this, you have to pay them 1.5%, 1.7%, which is the cost that a mutual fund is going to charge you. That also is going to come from the same 9%. So I can see only negatives in a monthly income plan or a capital protection oriented plan. I cannot see any positives. All right. The only positives would be if by luck that 3-year or that 5-year period the stock market has gone up 40-50%, which is not your doing, which is not the fund manager's doing, which is a pure matter of luck, and your 15% part of that is really giving you a little more return. But if you are invested in equities, you would have got much more out of that 40-50% return in any case. So none of these, unfortunately, are great choices. One of the key things to remember at 60, when you decide where to put the money, is that you are battling against rising expenses without rising or with zero income. So this is your income. Everything has to come out of this. So you have to necessarily find a way for this corpus itself to grow. If the corpus doesn't grow, you need a very large corpus. So you have 10 crores in the bank, obviously you don't need to attend this, you don't need to listen to anything that I'm saying. You say, I've got 10 crores, I put it in the bank, I get about 80 lakhs a month, I don't care. That's absolutely wonderful. But if you don't have that kind of money, if not saved up, or for whatever reason, if you don't have that kind of money, then you necessarily at 60, you have to make these simple assumptions that I'm going to live, I'm going to take care of myself, and I have no death wish anyway. And I need to put money so that part of this money actually grows as much or more than inflation. So that I'm not on this race to constantly beat my rising expenses out of a small amount of interest income that I earn. What do you do to do this? Post-retirement, as I said, one has still 25 to 30 years of life. Most people become extremely risk averse at that stage. risk averse in every sense of the term. Anything you tell them, no, I'm retired now. That's kind of refrain. Things are changing a little bit. People are replacing the knee and climbing the mountains. All of that is happening. But some amount of risk taking would be fine if part of the corpus is invested in the right kind of products. Okay. Decide the kind of part of the money that you do not need for the next 5, 7, 10 years. Obviously, Mr. Kumar needs about 77,000 rupees a month, all right? And he needs 60,000 to start with. And he's got 1 crore of corpus. A part of that, even at that stage, if he had not touched in and not put it in fixed deposits, and at part of that he had put in a financial product that can grow over a period of time, over 10 years or 15 years, he would be in a better position. The time when the money runs out, he would have that part of the product, that part of the portfolio giving him a much greater return. So my suggestion, everybody's situation is different. My suggestion is that between 60 to 65, invest at least to 40 to 50% in equity mutual funds. The part of the portfolio that you do not need for the next 10 years. If you find a way to calculate that this money I will not need, I will not touch, that is the money that you need, and to that extent 40 to 50% of your portfolio in equity mutual fund. Above 75, the moment you reach 75, if you benefited from doing so, you will obviously make no change, and this leads to, as I say, a two-part portfolio. Fixed income would be about, let's say, 60%. Use the income that you get out of this. Okay. Part of the money, growth money, use this to beat inflation. So this is your weapon against that 60,000 becoming 4,80,000. Okay. Withdraw if needed from the fixed income part. There could be unforeseen situations, etc. But do not withdraw it from that 40% part. The reason for this is very simple. If you don't know your timing of your withdrawal, you might just withdraw at a time when the market is down, and that would be exactly the wrong time to withdraw the money. Give it time. Once you said it has to be 10 years, ensure that it's there for 10 years. Okay, what are you likely to get? To repeat, you're likely to get 12% tax-free from the 40% part, and you're likely to get, let's say, bank FD, which are around 8.5%, corporate FD 10%, and corporate bonds 10 to 11%. So, to recap, 60% goes into one of these three, and I have a little bit details of this in the following slide, and 40% goes into mutual funds. So this is now about the 60%, the fixed income part. Where does it go? You can put 70% of that 60%, that is, in bank FDs. Corporate FDs can take 15%, and corporate bonds another 15%. What are corporate bonds? These are bonds that are listed in National Stock Exchange and can be bought through a stockbroker. You buy it, it comes straight into your demat account. You don't get physical certificates, all right? I just checked before coming here. 3 bonds. Cholamandalam listed bond today offers yield of 11.12%. So if you buy this bond, given the rate of return that Chola is offering, you are likely to get about 11.12% if you buy it today, and you hold it maturity, you are going to get the principal back. Tata Power, excellent company, yields about 11% or so. Then there is a Tisco perpetual bond which yields about 11% or so. So if you were to put 70% in bank or part of the fixed part, and 15% in corporate FDs, these are frequently, you will see 1 year, 2 year, 3 year deposits that come, and there are ways to choose some of these. We are writing about how to choose a correct corporate FD in the next issue of the magazine. So if you're a subscriber, please be on the lookout for it. That will guide you on how to choose corporate FD. Listed bonds, there's nothing to know. Go to NSE site, they're all listed there. I've given you 2-3 examples of this. One last small thing about the liquid fund, about the fixed income part, and that is we normally keep our money in savings account, right? And that gives us about 4%, 4-5%. Some of these banks are now offering around 6% or 7%. But typically this money can also be in liquid funds or mutual funds. If you put in your redemption request today morning, you're going to get the money tomorrow evening. Tomorrow afternoon, you're likely to get it in your account. If you are banking with the same family of institution, which means if you put money in HDFC liquid fund and if you have an HDFC bank account, then it's very, very simple. They just transfer the money to you. Liquid funds are better than savings account and are absolutely safe. The reason why they are safe, even though they invest in products that can typically go up and down, the reason they are safe is because liquid funds always invest in products which are 60-day or 90-day old. So they are short duration. Within that short duration, interest rates don't move up and down much, and because interest rates don't move up and down much, the value of the underlying security also does not move. So they are pretty steady. They're not like bond funds. Bond funds are a completely different story. As you would have noticed in my entire presentation, I have not mentioned bond funds anywhere, because bond funds they invest in bonds, and bonds can go up and down. So depending on when you buy, it's a market linked product. It's like gold. So you need to time it, and there's no reason for you to do that because these are pretty good options. And some bond funds, if God forbid, if you've been sold some funds of JM or one of these companies, you might even end up making 2%, and you will cry forever. Banks at least give me guaranteed 8.5, 8.75%. So bond funds are out, but liquid funds are a different story, because they all invest in very, very short duration, high quality paper. And any of these larger funds like HDFC or ICICI, they don't take a chance with the quality of paper. They're pretty serious about where they invest their liquid funds money. They know they have to pay it back anytime people want it. So they're as good as your savings account. So this is where your fixed income option ought to be going. Now, take the example that I talked about. If he retired at 1.66 crore, let's say, we said that he could have done something, invested a little slightly higher amount at 45, and he would have ended up with 1.66 crore. He may keep maybe 6 lakhs in bank savings account or liquid fund. He can have 60% in bank FD. I'm not even considered the mutual fund, equity mutual fund route. The remaining 1 crore, he could keep it in any of the other corporate deposits or bond funds. In that case, that 1 crore part of the portfolio, if he had kept it in bank FD, would grow to 5 crores at 20, provided he doesn't have to withdraw. In his particular case, we have assumed that he has to withdraw, so he cannot allow his money to grow that much. But with the same amount of money, if he could invest in products like the bonds that I talked about or corporate FDs that I talked about, and he got just 2% more, his 5 crore would become 7.37 crore, which is 44% more over a period of 20 years. So since a lot of us, I have spent so much time explaining this, because a lot of us are very, very comfortable in investing in something that doesn't go up and down, that capital is safe. Within that, you necessarily can look at listed corporate bonds and corporate FDs that I talked about. If you do choose to do what I have suggested, which is invest in equity mutual funds, which is 40% of your corpus, is what I have suggested. I don't have a chart here to show that it will grow tremendously, because that is 12%, no tax. It is just going to shoot through the roof. So I'm not even showed that in the chart, but and a lot of people are not confident that what I'm saying is correct, what I'm saying is going to actually happen, despite no matter how many years of examples that I show, that on a 10-year period you are not likely to lose. On a 10-year period, on an average, these kind of returns are almost guaranteed, and there is a reason why you get these kind of returns over a long period of time. It's not that I create it, it's not that NSE creates it, it is the companies which are focused on their bottom line, which live and die by increasing the profits every year, and they're accountable to the board and to themselves, and they want to pay them higher salaries. There's a reason why these companies, blue chip companies, keep growing, and with them the stock prices grow. So that is the basic reason why you should be investing. But many people don't have the confidence to do it, or don't believe what I'm saying. In case you have that confidence, and in case you have decided to put 40% of your money in equity mutual fund, that figure is just not going to be 5 crore, it will probably be 7, 8 crore or 10 crore or so on. The question still remains is, once it grows into that kind of figure, when do I sell? Because all information is about how to invest. Invest in SIP, invest in this fund, invest in quarterly, daily, blah, blah, blah. Once the corpus is grown, the question is much more serious. It's not a question of 15,000 rupees per month. It's a question of my 10 crore being protected and not becoming 4 crore suddenly in 1 year or whatever. It is a serious issue, and there are people who try to sort of find different ways to judge whether the market is overheated or not, whether they would like to withdraw at that time or not, whether the market is undervalued, there's no point in selling. That judgment is very, very important, and I think it's important for you to create that corpus, and having created that kind of money, to spend a little bit of time to figure out some things about what is called market timing. It's a hated word. I don't think you should avoid at least trying to figure out when does the market get heated up. We have looked at a very simplified manner. It's a huge topic. I can have a whole 2-hour session on trying to figure out when the market is overheated and when it's not. But we have tracked the performance of these two funds, especially Franklin Templeton India Dynamic PE Ratio Fund of Funds. There are other funds also which have got the same principle. The principle is this, that when the price to earnings ratio of the Sensex or Nifty is at those levels, this is the corresponding exposure that you should have to equity. Right? So as you can see, it is 90% when it's below 8, and it's 10% only when it's above 28. This gives you a scale to figure out when the market is undervalued or market is overvalued. To just give a practical real life example, for the past 5 years, market has been more or less stagnant. For the past 4 years at least, the market has been more or less stagnant. It's been higher actually a little bit, but let's say even at 19,000, the market had hit 19,000 sometime in 2010, and it's still at 19,000. 3 years it's the same level. All of these 4-5 years, there was absolutely no reason for a long-term investor to sell, despite the fact that at some stage index had become 16,000, which would have made it fall into that 12 below. It was around let's say 60 to 80% category. Okay, in this entire period, the market has never reached the first and the second levels in terms of undervaluation. Neither has it reached anything beyond 16 to 28 in terms of overvaluation. So while we get very impatient in thinking that this market is not going anywhere, frankly speaking, the market has never at any stage has been overvalued for you to sell. If it is not a sell, and you get a 2% dividend or 2.5% dividend every year, you are really preparing for a time when the market will eventually move to a much higher level for you to get 12% tax-free compounded. And that has been the story for the markets forever. If you go back in time in between 94 and 98, the market was actually down, all right? And then one fine day, in a matter of 16-17 months, the market quickly became overvalued, and that is the nature of the market. The point is to keep an eye at any time the Indian market is heading towards 20. How do you get to know this? You can follow some of the popular publications which publish this, or if you just do a Google search, which I do once in a while, to find out what is the Sensex P today. Okay, there are two ways of looking at it. One is the P which is based on earnings of a completed year. In our case now it is 2012-13. What analysts and fund managers look is expected P based on expected earnings of the year that we are on, that is going to be completed. That is 2013 and 14. Most of the analysts and fund managers are expecting an earning per share of around 1350 or so. I've always reduced that by about 7% or so, and I found that to be much more accurate. So I don't think 1350 will be because people are by nature more optimistic because their salaries come from that, so they feel it will be 1350. I feel it will not be 1350, it will be 1250. So if the index is 20,000 and the earning per share is supposed to be 1250, you can calculate the P is about 16. All right, the P is bang in the middle. There's no reason for you to sell your equity mutual funds at this stage. Just search in Google at any time you think that the market is low or high, or you want to check that, just search by consensus EPS and future price to earnings ratio of Sensex. We also keep writing about this once in a while. So this is roughly the strategy that has worked very well. This is a strategy that has worked fairly well across the world most of the time. And India is fortunately now, part is globalized. So there is very little chance that unless there is a crisis, which happened in 2008 or so, you are not likely to hit a P of anything below 12. So to give an example, next year's EPS is 1250. If the index were to be at 12, then the Sensex has to be around 15,000. So there is no chance in hell unless there is a crisis of index reaching 15,000. And if it does reach 15,000, you should buy more. Post-retirement support is a non-financial thing, completely non-financial thing, outside all of the calculations that we have discussed so far. Indian children do support their parents, especially for big expenses like hospitalization. I talked about a chart which smoothly rises, which are household expenses. I also mentioned that this thing is going to get disrupted suddenly. You will need hospitalization, and these days they are frightfully expensive. The healthcare expenses are growing at 20%. Inflation in healthcare is at 20%. It's not 9%, right? So that is a very major issue for anybody who has got that kind of a support. It's invaluable and definitely completely changes all of the calculations that you're talking about. You probably need half the money from any of these calculations if you have a post-retirement support. Now, one other option on paper, it's not become very popular, but it's good to know. One other option is what is called a reverse mortgage. Reverse mortgage is very, very popular in the US, and it will become very popular in India also, because this generation is, as I said, all growing up, and in about 15-20 years from now, they will all be, at least a large number of them will be asset rich and cash poor, which means they'll have less of money in the bank, and all of the money is going to be tied up on this property which they have paid through their nose in their earning years to acquire. So what will happen is, they will, like Mr. Kumar, he'll have 1 crore in the bank, but he'll have a 3 crore worth of property somewhere. So he knows that he can only encash his 1 crore up to a point, and some stage that 3 crore needs to be encashed. Okay, it will become very imperative for a lot of people, and a lot of private sector players at that time will come and expand this market. Currently, this market is being promoted by National Housing Bank, Central Bank, Bank of India, and one of the insurance companies. How does it work? It's fairly simple. You have a property, okay? That property you mortgage to a bank or a housing finance company. You give it to them, and the bank then starts giving you the money. Bank doesn't give you directly. What the bank does is goes to an insurance company and tells them that here is a property, and against this we want an annuity payment to be made, which is on the left hand side. The annuity payment to be made to the borrower regularly. Okay, why do you need the insurance company in the middle? Because it is structured in the form of annuity, and the banks do not have the capability of assessing longevity risk. Banks cannot know how long you're going to live and how long they'll have to pay you directly. So that first 2 levels, which was only the 2 levels when you acquired the property, is no longer there. Why was it there in the first two levels when you acquired the property? Because you have an income. You have an income, you have a salaried income, the bank has checked everything, they took mortgage and then given you a one-time housing loan, one lump sum housing loan. And then they know your repayment ability, you can't repay, they'll possess the flat. So it's a very fairly clean thing. Here, you have no repayment. You want the money. You're not repaying anything. You don't have the ability to earn anything. All right. All you have this property. The bank doesn't know how long it has to pay you, and these are contractual obligations which have to be done right in the beginning. It's the insurance company which can make an assessment how long you're going to live, because they're doing it day in and day out when they do an annuity payment. It's exactly like an annuity. So the house, technically what is happening is that the house is being converted into a lump sum money which is converted into an annuity lump sum, so that the annuity starts coming to you. So this is how the whole thing works. Now, yes?
Isn't there something different for this reverse mortgage if you want to then leave your property to your children?
Yeah.
Give you a lesser amount.
There are two options, okay? And these are the two options. The first option is no return of purchase price, which means suppose I don't have kids, I'm single, or I don't have kids, and I don't want the property, apart from going to my wife, I don't want it to go to anybody else. I don't have any legal heirs, I don't want to donate anything. So that's your option one. The option two is that you want, after you die and after your wife dies as well, you want that property to be valued, and if there is a surplus against the money that you've got, then the surplus has to be given to somebody. So then so that is the option two, in which case they'll value it. This is how it's going to work. During the lifetime of the borrower, you receive the annuity plus bonus, which is a normal insurance kind of thing. On the death, the annuity payment ceases in this case. In the second case also it ceases, but the purchase price is returned. Joint borrowers, you can apply, this is perfect for a single, because you don't want the property to come back to anybody, and the other one is suitable for couples or kids. Prepayment loan possible. Without prepayment levy, annuity will continue to flow to borrowers till demise. Possible without prepayment in the second case as well. Annuity will continue to flow till borrowers demise. Both are the same. Now the big difference is in the money that you get. If you want the option 2, the money that you get per month dramatically falls. It's much less. If you choose one, you get much more money. One of the reasons why this has not become popular, apart from the fact that the banks are not aggressively selling it, social reasons, people don't want to do this, or kids say, no, why do you want to do this? There are all kinds of complications and complexities involved the moment you want to do reverse mortgage. Apart from all of that, according to me, the two reasons why it's not popular. One is the fact that the banks are not selling it and there's no incentive, and the biggest reason is the cost. If you have to pay 1% of the principal every year to get this something simple done, where the bank is making money anyway by lending money to you as a stream, and the insurance companies anyway is making money because they're offering an annuity, and it's a part of their annuity business. What is the reason for this 1.5% cost? I don't know. It's just too prohibitively expensive. Now, of course, you have to pay tax because it's annuities. I told you in the first option you will get much more. Now here it is. If you have a property which is 50 lakhs worth, it will be calculated to be 60% of that. That is called loan to value, which means the bank will give you 30 lakhs worth out of this 50 lakhs. That also is low according to me. So 60% is the loan to value. In option 1, you will get 17,000 rupees per month, and in option 2, you will get 11,000 rupees per month. So there's a significant difference between option 1 and option 2, because in the second case you want the property back. So naturally, that calculation has to be brought in. this is the way it's going to work. As you noticed, the number is dramatically increasing for the same property. The number is dramatically increasing as you get older. The reason is very simple. For the life insurance company, the risk is reducing as you grow older, so they are willing to give you more money. At 80, they are willing to give you 51,000 per month, because they know once you die, in option 2, they are going to get a 50 lakh property straight away. All right. So this in fact leads to a big issue, that if you choose option 1 and if you die tomorrow, what happens? Okay, I'll make a comparison. To recap, for a 50 lakh house, the loan value is calculated to be 30 lakhs. In option 1, you give up the property. In option 2, you get back the value minus the loan. This 30 lakhs, the value the bank has valued as a loan given to you, they'll give it to the insurance company. So for the insurance is getting an annuity from the bank, okay, meant for you. So they pay you an annuity. Over 25 years, option 1 will fetch you 51.88 lakhs and option 2, let's say 32.98 lakhs. And since the bank is continuously paying you this money by check every month, there is an interest cost attached, they will attach to it, and that value will compound over a period of, it's a reverse of your FD. Okay, so you're creating a corpus for the bank rather than giving the bank a corpus and getting an interest. Here you're getting the interest, and the bank is calculating how much of money the corpus should be for you to get that interest every month. So let's say after 25 years, 30 lakh loan becomes 3.25 crore at 10%. I'm just giving an example. And the property value is, let's say, 3.42 crore. So what happens in case of option 1? The bank will sell the property at 3.42 crore, deduct their value of the loan, all this money they've given you has accumulated to 3.25 crore, and pay 19 lakh to the nominee. You don't get back the house, but whatever surplus you get. In option 2, the bank will sell the property at 3.42 crore, get 30 lakhs from the insurer, the original money they have given, and pay 49 lakhs to the nominee, because that is the value of the property minus the loan as it stands today. If the property does not appreciate, the bank is taking the hit. That is one reason why I think they put that 1% service charge, so at least some of the money that comes. Because all of this is 15, 25, 20 years into the future, and nobody knows how long the insurance company doesn't know how long you're going to live, and the bank doesn't know what is going to be the value of property. These are the two bets essentially they are taking. In option 1, the point that I was making, if you die after a year, you've got 2 lakhs, 17,000 into whatever. The bank will sell the property at 50 lakhs, assuming price has not gone up, adjust the loan and won't pay anything. The insurance company, which has got 30 lakhs and paid 2 lakhs, they'll get the rest of the money, they get 28 lakhs. That's the risk they've taken, and they've hit a jackpot in this case. So I've covered virtually all of these things, and